Greetings again everyone, and today I'm excited to be presenting my first ever review of a medium format camera lens, the Fuji GF 80mm f1.7 RWR, which is only for Fuji's GFX system cameras. The maximum aperture of f1.7 makes it one of the brightest lenses available on GFX, and for those curious, this lens is the full frame equivalent of 63mm with the equivalent depth of field of about f1.3 or so. So it's short telephoto with a capacity for beautifully out of focus backgrounds, lending itself perfectly to portrait and subject photography, as well as all kinds of other things. The lens costs $2,300 or about £2,000 here in the UK, although at the time of writing it can often be found for about 20% off. So it's expensive, but still potentially one of the most useful and creative lenses on the system. I'd like to thank Fuji UK for loaning me this optic for a few weeks over Christmas for evaluation, as well as a 100 megapixel camera to test it on, but this is still a totally independent review. The lens might have a great reputation, but we'll be looking out for weaknesses. Now, the first thing you notice about it is that obviously it's a big lens, and at 800 grams or approaching 2 pounds, it has a bit of weight to it for sure, although the build quality, a mixture of plastic and metal, feels fantastic in the hands. The lens is weather sealed in all the relevant places, as you'd expect in this price range. At the rear we get an aperture control ring which turns with nice tactile clicks every third of an f-stop and can be locked in or out of automatic mode with a button on the side. Then comes the rubberized focus ring. It turns lovely and smoothly, but the lens motor's response is poor, being really quite jerky, as you can see in this footage, which also demonstrates the focus breathing. That jerky focus response touches upon this lens's main weakness, slow autofocus. The lens's autofocus motor is slow and noisy in use, as you can see here and here. It gets on with its work begrudgingly, with the deflated air of a high school basketball coach whose professional life hasn't quite gone to plan. It is also not able to keep up with rapidly moving subjects, although slower subjects should be fine. The main thing though is that the autofocus system is at least accurate when it does get you there, and it is. The lens has a front filter size of 77mm and it comes with a nice deep hood. The lens does not feature image stabilization, although the newest Fuji GFX cameras feature it built in. Overall, the build quality is quite lovely here, although its size is considerable and its autofocus pedestrian. Let's move on and look at image quality. I'll be testing the lens on a GFX100 Mark II camera with its 102 megapixel sensor. In-camera corrections are turned on for this test. In the middle of the image we see fantastic sharpness and quite good contrast, even at 102 megapixels, but we're also catching a little purple fringing on contrasting edges. Over in the corners we still see a surprising amount of sharpness here, but contrast is certainly being spoiled by ghosting on contrasting edges. Still, considering the resolution we're shooting at, I'm quite pleased here. If you stop down to f2, then we notice slightly better contrast in the corners, and back in the middle, that purple fringing is virtually gone. Stop down to f2.8 and it's totally gone, leaving behind a truly spectacular image. Over in the corners, contrast has increased quite a lot, although the resolution lags behind the middle just a little. There's an improvement at f4, but at f5.6 the lens is razor sharp now from corner to corner. Nice. f8 and f11 look about the same, but at f16 the affected diffraction rob us of a little resolution. Still, overall, it's a great performance from this lens on such a ridiculously demanding sensor. It's true that you have to stop it down for the best results, but really, the resolution is more than sharp enough for most users, even at f1.7. Okay, let's bypass in-camera corrections by processing some raw images with third-party software and looking at distortion and vignetting. The lens projects just a touch of bin cushion distortion here, but quite strong vignetting at f1.7. At f2, f2.8 and f4, those corners gradually brighten up. With a minimum focus distance of a rather long 70 centimeters, this thing will definitely not be getting confused for a macro lens anytime soon. but thankfully close-up image quality is virtually as good here as it was at normal distances, with plenty of sharpness at f1.7, albeit with purple fringing again. At f2, that fringing is virtually gone, and at f2.8, we enjoy a perfect close-up image. Now, let's see how the lens works against bright light, and it's a performance on the good side of average here, I'd say. Small amounts of flaring and glaring are definitely visible, but thankfully it's nothing too intrusive. And while we're working in the dark, let's take a look at coma levels. As I suspected from the test chart pictures, coma is definitely present here, with smearing in the corners at f1.7, but you should remember this is a 102 megapixel image, which really emphasizes the issue. Stopping down to f2 greatly reduces that smearing, and at f2.8 it's gone, only to be replaced by small sun stars. Stop down to f8 for those sun stars to get nice and strong, and at f11 and f16 they get pretty big. Nice. Let's take a look at the quality of this lens's bokeh. A real pleasure on a medium format camera, and really that's another of this optic's strengths. These backgrounds look gorgeous and smooth, with no real issues apart from the typical cat's eye shape to specular highlights in the corners. I love it. And finally, related to bokeh comes longitudinal chromatic aberration. At f1.7, it's perfectly apparent here. It's still there at f2.8 and even a little at f4, although at f5.6 it's finally gone. Well then, what a fascinating introduction to the world of medium format optics. The GF 80mm f1.7 RWR is a truly great optic, and one of the most useful on the GFX system, with a couple of caveats. The lens struggles a little with image quality in its corners at the brightest aperture, but stop down just a little for those issues to mostly clear up, leaving behind excellent image quality from corner to corner. Longitudinal chromatic aberration is also a little high, and that autofocus motor. It autofocuses with the pace and the noise of a lens from the 1990s, although thankfully it does at least work accurately. Other than that, the lens is very sharp, even when contending with a 102 megapixel sensor, and with very high contrast, beautiful bokeh, nice sun stars. Honestly, if you have enough money to buy an expensive GFX camera, then a lens like this should probably be one of the first on your shopping list to take advantage of said camera. So, despite a few flaws to be noted, it definitely still comes recommended. I had a fun Christmas with that medium format camera. It was a real voyage of discovery for me, although actually trying to get sharp 102 megapixel images is no joke. Anyway, thanks for watching everyone, and if you find these reviews helpful or even just plain interesting, then check out my Patreon page in the description below, where supporters get all kinds of exclusive bonus content and make a huge difference to keeping this channel going. Ciao for now, everyone.